Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I am going to turn this over to our CEO, Gina Klein-Rose, to get us kicked off.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited for this webinar. We have some amazing school leaders, district leaders here to talk about all of the ways that they are ensuring that all means all, as in every single child gets what they need to succeed in literacy. We have some wonderful people here. We have Heidi Burns, the coordinator of teaching and learning for the Kendall Demonstration Elementary School in Gallaudet University. And of course, everyone, please just correct whatever I say wrong when you talk. We have two people from Shoshone Schools in Wyoming, Heidi Christensen, the Title I director, and Andrea Gilbertson, elementary principal. And also, I have to mention that she was just recognized as the Wyoming Elementary and Middle School Principal of the Year. So congratulations, Andrea. And then we are also so lucky to have Shauna Sweet, Director of Multilingual Education and immediate past president of the New York State TESOL in Greece Central School District in Rochester, New York. And of course, we have Dr. Irvin Scott here with us today, who is just one of my heroes. And Dr. Scott is a senior lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, the founding co-chair of the Harvard Graduate School's online education leadership master's program. He's been a teacher, a principal, a chief academic officer, and assistant superintendent, and also author of a beautiful book, Leading with Heart and Soul. And he does a lot of work on how to collaborate between public schools and our faith institutions. So we are so lucky to have him as our moderator today. And I think that's my job. I think I'm done.
You've done an amazing job. Thank you, Gina. It's an honor to be here, and I'm so excited about the opportunity to facilitate this conversation with individuals who are doing the work on the ground in partnership with American Reading Company. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. We are excited about engaging with individuals who are doing the work on the ground of ensuring that every student has access to great materials and has every opportunity to achieve at the highest level. And so we're going to jump right into this conversation. You're going to hear more from the practitioners than you're going to hear from me. That's what we're hoping to do. And since we mean all means all, and we believe that one of the ways to ensure that is through great curricular materials, we're going to have a conversation with our district and school leaders about how they actually brought these materials into their setting. So let's just start with this question of, and I'll have Andrea kick it off for us, around what were the conditions in your school or your school district that suggested that you needed to go in a different direction when it comes to curricular materials, et cetera.
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. So glad you joined us today. Just honored to get to be a part of the conversation. I would say, for us, when we were looking at our curriculum and looking at where we were, unfortunately, our data was showing that we were at a mere 40% achievement rate, if you will, in terms of our student performance and student proficiency at the time I joined the elementary school. So that was about 6 years ago. And so that I would say that was one of the key conditions, was we really needed something that was going to make a difference for kids and really be able to move us in a better direction than we currently were. I would also just add that in terms of reading, our kids were frankly not in love with reading. We were at the time had a basal program of which kids did not have interest. There definitely was not that piece of no empowerment through choice. That certainly did not exist. There was very limited engagement. And so if I were to say those were some three conditions that really caused us to really want to look much harder at better options to serve our community and our students. And I will share with you that we absolutely found all of those things in the American Reading Company. And I probably have a chance to visit with everyone a bit about that more here coming up. But I would say those are the conditions generally that we were facing at the time we decided to join American Reading Company.
Thank you, Andrea. So performance data was showing that there was a need. Certain students weren't performing. The other was this notion of this idea of students enjoying reading. I don't want us to miss that. Not only were kids not doing what we believe they can do, they weren't having a lot of fun with reading. Let's see, Heidi, you're a Shoshone. Did you want to add anything there? And then we'll go on to Shauna.
Yes, just talking about joy, we also had a discussion that as teachers, when we looked at ARC, 100% of our staff was on board with selecting ARC, and part of that was the joy of teaching and the opportunity for teaching in a framework and researching and instilling that love of reading in students. So that was a big push from our staff, and we still have 100% of our staff on board even after this handful of years, and to see that joy in kids and teachers, it's really been the most exciting part, as well as the learning and growth from our students.
I really appreciate that. So we've got students not performing. We've got students not enjoying. Now we've got faculty. We have teachers who weren't enjoying what they were doing, and they're excited now about actually doing. We didn't even set these questions up this way, but I love the trajectory of these questions. Shauna, jump in. What about from your perspective at Greece Central?
Sure, I can speak to that. In our district, we have a curriculum review process. And so through that process, the curriculum review committee determined what they wanted to see. And I'll say on that committee, there were several types of educators. So not just our elementary or ELA teachers, but also our special education and ENL teachers. ENL is English as a New Language, which we use here in New York. And they tried out different materials. In fact, there were some curriculums that had a very specific separate English language learner component, which initially seemed really attractive. However, as we started to pilot different materials, we found that ARC Core really connected with some of the advanced literacies that we're promoting here in New York State. So about working with engaging rich texts that feature big ideas. Hallmark 2 is about building academic language and through conversation. Hallmark 3 is writing across the curriculum, so writing to build language. And Hallmark 4 is about studying a small set of vocabulary. So I think the thematic units from ARC really showed that, after the pilot, our English language learners were just completely taking off in terms of their learning. And so I know my department was glad that ARC was selected.
Thank you, Shauna. So there may be individuals out there, Shauna planted the seed for a really important point, curriculum adoption periods, right? So that is a sequence that happens in school districts where you're going to adopt a new curriculum. If you're in that sequence or that's coming up, this is a time to think about, is what you're doing meeting the needs of your students? And something else Shauna said, a changing population, ENL students, right? And so if it's not meeting the needs of the students, this is a time to be thinking about something else. Shauna, I just got to come back to you because I think I just heard something for the first time. Maybe it's just me. You said ENL, not ESL. Is ENL the language that you use in New York? Is that what you were saying about how to refer to language learners?
Yeah, so ENL in New York State is what referred to the program and the instruction. So we're teaching English as a new language, not as a second language, because for some students, English might be their third language or their fourth. But also in New York State, we feel really strongly that we need to maintain the home language. So, for programs like we have a dual language program, we want to make sure that we are adding English, but not taking away the home language. So we use ENL in New York State.
That's really powerful. That's a powerful learning. That's one of the things I appreciate about these conversations, how we can learn different states do things differently, talk about things differently, but hopefully all the same in terms of ensuring success for students. Heidi, DC, Gallaudet, talk a little bit about the conditions or the considerations that as you were moving forward.
I'm so excited to be here, especially because I can see in the list of the participants, people that I know who are in the chats. So it's nice to see familiar names and faces. It makes me a little bit more comfortable and at home feeling. I have a unique situation that I work in elementary program on the campus of Gallaudet University. So our president likes to say that we serve birth to pre-K or PhD. We serve birth to PhD in our program. So in my particular area, I work with kindergarten to 8th grade in a program, and it's called the Kendall Demonstration Elementary School. And it's kind of similar to what Shauna said. We're in the market. We were looking for a curriculum around 3 years ago. We did it the normal, we asked for, samples, we asked for demonstrations. We wanted to see, what different companies were offering. Everything kind of looked fine, but we were specifically looking for 3 things. We were looking for something that we knew already that there were currently no reading plans that were specifically targeted and developed for deaf students. So we were looking for something that kind of resonated and would meet the frequency of our students, something that we could see in our space for ASL. We could see that the program could use it, it could be adapted. ASL might not be offered, but we could adapt it without too much difficulty to our program. Secondly, we were looking for some flexibility and flexibility in materials and resources. We really needed to see a wide range of reading levels that the students could find value in, that our students could have a variety of options in text. Some of our students were born and grew up signing since birth, and so they were starting to learn English. Some of our students were new to learning ASL, new to learning English, and so we needed to respect where they were at, but still let them feel like they were included and that they were part of, the meaty curriculum that we were offering. And third, we needed a good structure, but that wasn't rigid for our students, so that we could support teachers who were new, or maybe some of our veteran teachers who had, maybe they knew how to make these adaptations and changes to the program. So we were looking for something with flexibility, not too much rigidity, but with structure. And it was amazing to see the range in text that were offered. And that range was able to make it so that we could accommodate students, even if they were in the same unit, they could have different texts. And the kids, so when this was offered, most of our teachers voted for the ARC curriculum.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Very clear, specific criteria for why they went ultimately for American Reading Company. Adaptability, flexibility, and structure. Adaptability, flexibility, and structure. And one of the things that Heidi said, shared about structure was supporting teachers, which is where I want to go next. Because I want to have a little conversation about what were the supports that you got from American Reading Company to implement effectively this curricula. Do you mind, maybe could we have Heidi Christensen? Can you start us off with the professional development conversation, if you don't mind, Heidi?
Absolutely. So we were fortunate enough when we did our adoption to visit a school that was implementing ARC, so that we got to see what the classrooms look like with the writing and the student work and the interactions in the classroom. So that helped us just get a visualization of what to expect. And then the ongoing coaching that has been so adaptable to the needs of our staff has been really outstanding and personalized. Our teachers have really enjoyed that opportunity to learn and grow as they support the needs of their students, and as teachers' needs change. As we've had this curriculum for a couple of years, we have just really appreciated that coaching piece, and using the early assessment with ARC and having that coaching on assessing and on our actual student data and how to meet the needs of our students has been very impactful.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Let me follow up real quick with a question with you, for you, Heidi, and that is the visits, actually visiting schools that were implementing it. What can you say a little bit about what you were looking for? Because I know a lot of school districts do visits when they're thinking about implementing a new curriculum. What were you guys in particularly looking for when you did those visits, Heidi? And then we'll go to Andrea, and you can pick up on any of those questions.
Sure. We and it was Andrea and I that did that visit the very first time, and we were just looking for at that point in time what the curriculum parts and pieces were that we could see in the classroom, kind of how that looked different from the classrooms we were in. And as she mentioned, we were in a basal program, so we were really blown away by the amount of student writing that was on the walls, and it made us realize how limited our student writing was during that point in time, and the amount of books that we saw in the spaces. And again, it just made us realize that that love of reading was missing in our spaces. We have since had a lot of schools visit our school to look at ARC, and it is so fun to see those teachers come in and visit, and our ability to share what our students are doing. Again, that quality and quantity of writing. It's always fun for our students to tell visiting teachers what they're reading, what they love about what they're studying. And I just have to share the very first year that we adopted. I am in the preschool, and we had a child explaining his favorite illustrator in his book and why we should read those books. So just that knowledge is what we love to share. So definitely from our first visit to now how we share with other schools, that awareness of just the quality and quantity of actual student work and participation.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Heidi. And I hope everyone heard that Heidi came with a lens of what they were doing before, which was the basal readers. And so the contrast that she was able to see when she came into this new setting was really striking. Andrea, you want to add anything before we go to Shauna and then Heidi?
Sure. I would just say that overall, in terms of just this implementation, the support from the American Reading Company was truly a breath of fresh air, compared to other curriculum adoptions I've experienced. I would say the most significant difference for us was really the unparalleled level of customer service that we've received through American Reading Company, the support of the partners, especially I think about, it's just a different ballgame. Before I would say that they, dumped off a box of textbooks and said, good luck, but this was truly, we were left on our own in those times, but this was really, truly a partnership from the beginning. And, it's not been a one-off event. It has absolutely been very systematic in the support that we've received from the partners. They're very, the coaching that we've gotten is very personalized, and so much, in fact, every grade level has had opportunities to work with the coach multiple times throughout the year. And I just think that's a very unique opportunity, and it has grown us tremendously over the years. Again, we've been doing this 7 years now. And one thing I am so proud to say, and I'm so grateful for, is just how the company has supported us as we've grown in the American Reading Company. So as our skills have increased and we've gotten better in the craft, if you will, American Reading Company has been there with, phenomenal coaches and people to help continue that growth. And so we're just doing some awesome things, and just really appreciate that support through and through. And it's been there the whole time. So
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. Shauna, what does that support look like for you guys, either as you were coming in or while you're implementing it now?
Yeah, sure. So I can share that ARC has been, very closely connected with our district all along. I think for myself, speaking from my department, we are in the first year of implementation of our two-way dual language program. So it's bilingual, English and Spanish. And I'll say that it's been a big lift, but we have actually a coach from ARC, Liz Shaheen, who's been absolutely wonderful. It's not just like a ready-made professional learning. She works with us. She gets to know our students, gets to know the staff and the structures, and uses all of her expertise to, in our regular meetings, to help our students move forward. So that support has been amazing. Part of what we've worked on is getting to look at the IRLA and Enil, which is the Spanish version of the IRLA, if people aren't sure, and taking a look at a matrix and trying to figure out where students need to move in each language. So we've done a lot of work with that. And recently, I was going to share an example, if that's okay. But recently, we also started looking at writing. So we took a look at using the Kinsey writing scale and students taking a look at students' work. So I was just going to share one example of student growth, but this is just a perfect example of, this is our actual student who we're very proud to say this student didn't know any Spanish in September, and they're able to write. So if you take a look at, the English writing is on the left and the Spanish writing is on the right, and then we're analyzing at the sentence level, at the word level, at the phonics level, and able to do this for each student and to help support our teachers with this process. So we have to say, without this type of intensive support, we would not be able to see the growth that we've seen in our students in reading and writing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Love that example of student work and evidence of student growth and progress. Thank you. And so also talking about coaching. Heidi Gallaudet, what would you add to this conversation about supporting educators as they're implementing the materials?
All right, I just want to make sure everybody can see me. If the deaf in the audience can pin me as well. So again, yeah, similar to what everybody else has commented on, the support from the company themselves has just been amazing. They're so responsive. I had so many questions when I started, and I started thinking about all the questions, and I'm on the phone with them, with Mandy or Andy all the time. With Andy, I said, okay, tell me more about this. Tell me more, how do I do this? And the best part was our coach, Donna K. Let's see, it was Kolakowski with a Y or an I. Sorry if I'm not reading it right. They had already been working with the Deaf School, the Delaware Deaf School. And they had already been using ARC for about 5 years at that point. And Donna herself, she didn't have a background in deaf ed, but she was more like a collaborator. And so she was learning from the Delaware school. She'd come and meet with me. I would meet with the Delaware school, and we kind of like started these baby steps to a really good collaboration between us. And like I was able to go and see the program in action in Delaware. They're a really small school, same as we were at Kendall. And so we just had a lot of similarities, and we were able to learn from each other and learn from Donna, who was learning from us at the same time. So, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about deaf ed as a whole, but it's a very small world, and the best way to find something that works is to talk with other educators from deaf school, schools for the deaf, schools that have mainstream programs. Um, and word spreads. And so we started contacting others to develop programs for the ARC, and we would kind of like switch ideas and how we were using certain parts of it, and like which part of the curriculum could be done with this, and what about the reading process related to translating it from English into ASL. How would you start the writing process? So it was a really great brainstorming of ideas. And Kendall's only in the third year of the implementation, but my network of professionals who can support me has grown exponentially.
That's beautiful. Someone just put in the chat, 3 of our teachers plan to visit Kansas School for the Deaf next week. Beautiful. This notion of growing in partnership with other communities is really, really important. I hate to put Gina on the spot here, but I know she's going to knock this question out of the park. It has to do with coaching, because each one of the schools and school districts have talked about their coaches being so critical. Maybe a word from you on the how ARC thinks about placing coaches in particular places. What is that mindset? How I've seen amazing coaches. You guys have something really special there. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you guys think about it. Then I'm gonna get right back to the schools and school districts.
Well, Donna's a great example. All the coaches are great examples, but it's not about doing one thing the right way. It's about facing the complicated, often miserable reality, and then figuring out that where kids are reading at all a variety of places, writing at a variety of places, speaking, signing in a variety of capacities, but they're all brilliant. And figuring out how to unlock that brilliance with teachers and leaders who may not have experienced that themselves in school either. It's just slow and hard and the most important work in the world. And you need a partner coming from ARC who's going to like sit down next to you and figure out what next. Let's not do that right now because everyone will get too upset. Let's do this instead because there's so many ways that we can improve this work together.
Beautiful. That speaks to Heidi Burns's point around flexibility and nimbleness and not being so rigid, having a coach. And then Gina said, someone who sits beside you, right? Someone who's sitting with you as you're doing this implementation is really important. So I just wanted to elevate the fact that each one of you in some shape, form, or fashion talked about the importance of coaching as you were doing the implementation. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Gina. Let's talk for a moment about challenges. Like, I mean, if people are listening to us and they might start saying, okay, was it really that smooth all the time? And now you're implementing? Are there some things where you're like, we're trying to figure this out and we haven't figured it out yet, but we're determined to do so? And I'll start with Shauna and then I'll go to Heidi Burns and we'll sort of work our way back.
Yes, so I can definitely speak to this one. With the challenges, I mentioned this before, but you know, for our English language learners, there were a lot of challenges and a sense of fear, as what happens with any new curriculum. But you know, as I said, there is not a specific curriculum for English language learners with American Reading Company. And sometimes people want a magic wand. They want to just have something to say, how can I support my English language learners? And it just doesn't really exist. But with that being said, I think it makes it more attractive to me as an instructional leader, knowing that, you know, we have to have high expectations for all of our students. And something that I found was that, you know, we have really zoomed in our district on taking a look at the units, and it's hard work. It's not the easy work, right? So but we've zoomed in as a department to say, like, okay, in this unit, for every grade level, every unit, what are the goals? You know, what are the priority standards and assessments? What are the language objectives? What's the background knowledge that students will need or be able to tap into? You know, and what are some ways that we can scaffold language and content? So how can we support our English language learners? So my mantra is always not to give our students who are learning English less. We actually give them more. So we give them everything that the other students are getting, but we might give them more exposure to the content, more exposure to having books in a variety of levels, or maybe a supplementary book in their home language or video, so they can engage in the authentic materials that the other students in the class are. And I say, you know, we found a lot of success. I did want to show, let me see if I can show this picture, because I did share it earlier, but this is a point of pride of one student who, this was the unit, I think it's the entomology unit. And you know, something I'm really proud to share is this student was in kindergarten, and he did not speak a word of English in September, and this is the end of the school year, and he got to choose his own topic. So his topic was bees, and he was very excited about bees. And not only did he do a lot of reading and research, but he wrote about it. And then they had community members come, so the students could share about their books. So because it's high interest curriculum, you know, we were able to differentiate and meet the needs of all the students. So I love this picture because I was amazed when I saw what this student can do in just not even a full school year. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Shauna. I want to plant the seed for another question as you answer questions around challenges. And that was a question that Shauna just alluded to, and that is engaging stakeholders beyond just the school. It sounds like Shauna invited individuals, the community, to see what the students were doing. So you can take on either of those questions. That's an important question. But Heidi Burns, if you could talk a little bit about either of those, the challenges or how you go beyond the school.
Sure. Yep, I'm just waiting to be pinned so that the deaf audience members can see me. Perfect. All right. So I think inside deaf education, it's easy to, well, maybe not just deaf ed. This is where my experience lies, but it's easy to talk about students related to what they haven't developed yet. For example, many of our students arrive to learning ASL later in life, not as babies, not as infants, but maybe not until they're in third, fourth, fifth, or sixth grade. And often our conversations talk about, oh, they're missing this part. There's a language deprivation that we're noticing. And so we start like how our conversations have transformed. Really, it's had to force us to talk about students and what they bring to the table, what they're arriving with, and how they're bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience, even if they don't have the language to show it and share it with their experience. Like that's the challenge for us. Internally, we noticed that we had to shift how we talked about students. And so I'll say one thing that we have done is involve the outside community members. We bring them in for celebrations to celebrate the student success. We do a little bit of marketing. We're going to be doing one for like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and it's related to mystery, our mystery unit. It was amazing. The teachers in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they have decided to host an escape room event. So the students are going to be writing the mystery information, and then people who come in will get involved. They're not allowed to leave, right? If they don't figure out how to get out of the room or they don't solve the riddle. I mean, I'll let you know how that goes. But it's just, it's a good way to reframe how we think about students instead of thinking, oh, they don't have this, they haven't had a chance to see this kind of writing, haven't to do this. We're giving it to them. We're giving them a chance now. You know, the complex puzzles and learning, you know, the strange and interesting ways to do things. So it's one of my biggest pleasures this year was working with those 3 teachers to kind of have this discussion and figure out, you know, they are having so much fun. You know, and so I think that I wish that I was able to show you guys what we're going to do, but maybe next time I'll bring some of the puzzles the kids are putting together. Maybe you guys can try and solve them.
I love that. Heidi, we're going to have you back so we can, we will, so we can, you can tell us if anyone made it out of the room or not. That sounds,
I mean, if I make it back, Dr. Scott, I might be stuck in the room if I can't solve the kids' puzzles.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I really appreciate the point about changing the way we talk about students. Such an important point. What changing from what students don't have to what are they coming with? Such an important point for all of our students. Just a really, really important point. Thank you so much, Heidi. Heidi or Andrea, either of these questions, challenges or even inviting others. Go ahead, Andrea.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about some school-based challenges and then maybe a few challenges for myself as a leader. And then Heidi can maybe speak to some challenges maybe she had as a classroom teacher, as well as maybe some community engagement pieces. But I would say one significant challenge that, you know, our school faced, and certainly myself as a leader, was navigating and ultimately that we grew from with the American Reading Company adoption was initial discomfort, truly, and shift in our instructional mindset, you know, that was required of our teachers. So again, you guys had heard us share that we had operated from a more basal reader approach and model, which was dictated, you know, pacing, prescribed activities, you know, really felt pretty rigid for a lot of reasons. And while it provided structure, it truly inadvertently moved so many of our talented, you know, educators away from the core reasons that they entered this profession. You know, the true joy of fostering a love of learning, you know, the ability to personalize instruction and the opportunity to truly connect with students with their individual needs and interests. And so, so over time, that passion, you know, while still present, might have been somewhat dimmed, you know, by really the constraints of the basal. So with the American Reading Company curriculum, it's, you know, emphasis on teacher agency, student choice, and that deeper dive into, you know, just those authentic texts that are so phenomenal, just represented truly a significant paradigm shift for us. So it asked our teachers to really embrace more of a facilitative and, you know, I guess, responsive style of teaching, if you will. Heidi and I joke a lot about, you know, getting t-shirts that say, you know, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because there was a stretch of time in there where we lived that a lot. So again, as far as, you know, myself as the leader in that space, it was just really leading change with some empathy, you know, just recognizing and validating the feelings of some discomfort for the teachers and uncertainty. You know, it was just crucial to provide some consistent support in that space and clear communication. I would say also just trusting the process would be a key part, you know, and trusting our teachers through the process as well. So just, and again, that partnership with, we talked before, with the American Reading Company and the professional development it provided certainly helped that. And again, I'm just saying in the end, while the transition had its growing pains and challenges, you know, the shift that was brought about by moving to American Reading Company has been transformative for us. It truly, really did reignite passion for teaching that, I will be fair to say, that was dormant for some time in our teachers. So that's just been such a joy to watch, you know, just the joy of them reconnecting with students and with compelling literature and fostering their individual interest. And I get passionate about it, you know, just witnessing the students' growth just in a lot of profound ways. So again, the challenge being the initial discomfort, a necessary part of the journey. And, you know, through it, our district and our educators really have become so much more I guess I would say adaptable, just more responsive, and ultimately just more effective in serving all of our learners. So again, we've learned that embracing the uncomfortable can lead to truly some remarkable growth and rewards. So Heidi, if you want to speak a little bit on the.
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi. Go ahead.
Sure. One of the pieces that getting comfortable, being uncomfortable was learning the IRLA, and we kind of talked about our teachers, you know, teaching their weekly unit and doing their weekly tests and seeing where their students were. And when we made the shift to American Reading Company and really utilizing that IRLA to identify the strengths of students and what their next power goal would be, the step into collaboratively sharing students and sharing their success and sharing data input in their into school pace and in their IRLAs really made a huge shift for just the way we teach and interact with our students. So that was a bit of a challenge to begin with, but boy, have we all grown, students and teachers alike, and the collaboration has just really shifted with the culture of our school. So that was very exciting. And with that, the conversations with our families as they come in for parent-teacher conferences and to see what kids are learning and growing and the information that we could give to families about what their kids could do and what their kids were interested in studying, and here are concrete pieces of evidence of their learning and their writing and what the next steps are to help them grow, really impacted just parent involvement in our school. And then the home reading we've really grabbed a hold of in our school, and even starting with our preschoolers, our kiddos are reading so many books, and the books are going home and families are talking about books and reading, and they celebrate reading success with our kids. We hold an author fair at the end of the year and invite the community in to see what the children have written. Our kids have participated in a statewide young authors contest and have done very well. So just sharing that celebration really accentuates the growth and quality of work that our students are doing and highlights that that strength of literacy, which is super exciting.
Thank you, Heidi and Andrea. Both of you shared salient points. Andrea, you mentioned something I think I just want to put a pin in, because you were talking about empathy from the leaders as teachers are implementing something new. That's a really important point. So we've got leaders on the call also. We've got teachers, we've got district people. And this idea of, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to move forward, but at the same time, understanding that they are doing something new. And so how do we make sure that we're taking that into consideration as we push forward? I think that's just a really important acknowledgement around leadership. Okay, we are shifting to results. Anyone, Shauna, start us off. You actually shared some sort of results, tangible results, but let's talk a little bit sort of a 30,000-foot level. What are some of the things that you're already noticing when it could be student performance data, but it might be something else you're saying? Go ahead, Shauna.
Absolutely. So with the help, and I'll speak specifically to our bilingual program, which is 2 classes of kindergarten right now, Spanish and English. And the program has both students, who come from homes where they speak Spanish, and students come from homes where they speak English. What I'll say is that the support we got from ARC, the coach, about the equitable conference schedule and being able to analyze the data. There's this amazing tool called the Erla Anil Matrix. And basically what it shows is where students fall for both languages. And it's really incredible to see that we've come up with a schedule for conferences. And we've met a couple of times, and it's a whole, I'm going to show another picture. It's a whole system that we've developed that's color coded for 2 classrooms, so about 40 students. And what I'll share is with the reading growth, we started out a few months back with 17 groups of students, and that was based on, the students' level of English and Spanish and what their needs were. And last week we did another grouping, or this week, and we're down to 10 groups of students. So really what that means is that the gaps are closing, that students are really, they're attaining the literacy in both languages, because the gaps are decreasing, and we've seen a huge shift in that. So I feel like that's definitely result celebration, that it's something tangible that we've been able to see, like, wow, we have this many less cards, because every note card is a group, and it's because the students are learning. So that's like some results that I'm really proud to share.
Wonderful. And it's a tangible result for your community. Like, right? So
We
when
can
you
see
look
it.
at that, you're like, you can actually see it, see the number decreasing, see the colors decrease, if I'm hearing you correctly. And that's really important for a messaging to the community. Heidi Burns, what about in your community? What are some of the early indicators that you think you're moving in the right direction?
So like I said, we're in the 3rd year for implementation. The first year we focused on the ERLA. In that first year, we saw our reading culture shift, a humongous shift. Previously, I would say, like, our students would comply with reading. If they knew they had to do it, they would do it. There wasn't too much resistance. But 1 year with the students talking about, oh, what are you reading? We're going to read together. Let's find your goal. What's your power goal? And sharing that, we saw a few big changes. One was that students started to own their reading. They start to take ownership of it. Like, I need to do these things. I need to work on these. And that was huge. And sometimes I think student reading levels become a point of embarrassment for students sometimes. And that was eliminated. They say, I'm reading at 1R, but my goal is 2R. And I'm doing these things. And, they could talk about it clearly about what they were working on. And so we saw less of a feeling of like reading defeat, right? They could read for themselves. They took ownership of their reading. And it became kind of a catchphrase with the teachers. I would say, don't read for me, read for you. And we would say that over and over again. And the other thing, so in the second year, we started to see we were reading for a reason, right? Because you can read for enjoyment. The second year was a research. It was researching, learning, reading for knowledge. And so I will, learn and read through whatever level I'm at. And so this year, this 3rd year, I know is a great amount of writing, and they're willing to do it. And we see they're writing it and they're discussing with less embarrassment, almost no shame or embarrassment about what they can and can't do. It's like a philosophical change with we're all improving, period. So I think we've seen evidence in our writing scores, our assessment scores. We're seeing a lot of writing increase. Before, the kids would write just a few sentences, maybe a paragraph, and now it's like a page full, which is great. Where the kids are proud of that, and it's evident, they're proud of it, and you can see it in school.
Wonderful. More writing, reading for me, not for you. overall change in culture, which we're beginning to see in student performance, right? Really powerful. Heidi and Andrew. Yeah, go ahead.
Can
Gina.
I add something there, which I think everyone touched on, but this idea that when we talk about the skills we need next, it separates reading and writing and knowledge from intelligence. And for adults and children, it's suddenly safe to talk about what you need to learn next, what you can't do yet, because it's not an evaluation of your capacity or your value.
Not an evaluation of your capacity or your value. Really, really important. All of these things in an integrated way. Heidi, Andrea, results, and then we're going to go to any advice that you want to leave our listeners with.
Sure. We chuckle because our first year of adoption, we had a conversation as teachers about how our kids are smarter. Like, it did not take very long for just their vocabulary and interest level and knowledge to just grow. And it's so fun to hear them read and be excited about what they're learning, and just the conversations that children have with each other, and just the amount of knowledge they have gained alongside the love of reading and the literacy skills. But just the oral language and vocabulary has been huge. Andrea is going to share some specific data, but we do love to talk about how smart our kids have gotten.
Thank you, Heidi. Just in terms of more specific data, the results we're seeing since adopting the American Reading Company. Now, again, this is our 7th year doing it, but they're truly affirming, honestly, and just provide such clear evidence that we made the right choice for our students and our school community. The most significant indicator, I will say, that's black and white, if you will, is just that we're incredibly proud that we went from a 40% IRLA in the beginning, and this is, again, same with our state testing results, to we're at 73% currently. We just did the IRLA this past week, so we're at 73% proficient right now. So that's significant growth for us, obviously. So it speaks volumes about the impact of the curriculum and the hard work of our students and our teachers. But the data certainly goes beyond just, a number, if you will. We've seen significant growth across all subgroups. And I would say, what's particularly encouraging is that this growth, isn't just isolated to one group of students. We're seeing meaningful progress in reading proficiency across all our diverse learners, including our English language learners, our students receiving special education services, and students from various, socioeconomic backgrounds. So this just reinforces the idea that ARC's inclusive design truly supports all learners. Heidi spoke to the, to increase the student engagement and motivation, and that is just so dear to my heart, to see kids that love reading. I mean, is there anything better that we're raising kids that love reading? And I am so proud of that. And then with that, just their improved reading behaviors, their comprehension skills, I feel like are, just our formative and benchmark assessments are just showing such deeper levels of comprehension and just more sophisticated reading behaviors that we're, again, just proud of. They're able to demonstrate the ability to analyze texts, and they're making connections and across books, across, in their lives, and just articulating their understanding in such just more profound ways than ever before. And again, I would just close with that, we've seen such a shift in the overall school culture around reading, and I am just so proud of that. It's, no longer viewed as a chore, but truly as an enjoyable and just an enriching activity. And students talk about books. Heidi sort of shared that earlier, but, they talk about books with each other with excitement. They know authors, they know what genres they like, and they can recommend titles to their friends, and just to see themselves as readers and writers. And again, I don't think there's anything that I'm more proud of than that. So that's some pretty strong data.
That's some pretty strong data indeed. Beautiful. They see themselves as readers and writers, having conversations with their peers about what they're reading, not doing it for compliance sake. Amazing. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes. I have 2 questions. You can answer either one. One is, what sort of final word of advice would you give to individuals who are at the point of making these considerations or are in the implementation? So what advice would you give? And then the other one, you can choose this one, is sort of what didn't we say, or what didn't you say that you want to leave them with, All right, so that's sort of how we're finishing up. I'll give you 5 seconds to come up with a thought. And let's start where we just left off, Andrea, and then we'll go to Heidi Christensen, then Shauna, and then Heidi Burns.
Sure. Again, the American Reading Company truly has brought us so much joy. And if I can say anything, it really has brought our teachers joy in the work that they do. It's brought joy to our children, being able to enjoy books and learn through reading. And again, like Heidi said, their knowledge base has just grown exponentially. And again, speaking of growth, I would just say also that I am just so proud and so pleased with how we've grown together as a staff, how we've grown together as a community around this. It is just truly, and I mean, I said the word prior, but it really has been transformative for us, and it has been such a strong driver. And again, my first year as a principal, this was implementation, and so we've just grown together in so many capacities, and I just couldn't be more proud, again, to partner with the American Reading Company. They have done a tremendous amount in support of our success here. And so and Heidi Burns had said that just about everyone improving, and that happens here as well. I see that all the time. And so I'm just proud to be a part of the American Reading Company and get to have our children involved. And it's been significant in what we're doing here. So.
Thank you, Andrea. Heidi Christensen.
Sure. Just one last final thought. We were visiting about one of the biggest shifts that we noticed was that all of our students had such a better access to Tier 1 and to core instruction with success. Just the ability for all children in the space to feel like they were successful and learning, and that teachers felt like they were able to meet the needs of students in that core literacy block, and enjoy that teaching moment and make it meaningful for students has been really the biggest takeaway for us.
That's a really important one. That Tier 1 instruction and having this fit nicely into that core sort of instructional model is really, really important to share. Thank you. Thank you so much, Heidi. Shauna?
Starting at the kindergarten level, going all the way up through our middle school students where they're using ARC Fusion. I think some of the best advice I got was to focus on the skills and not the text. Sometimes we're very often as educators, or I was an English teacher myself, we're focused on a particular book, or they have to get through the story. Instead, focus on the skills, and children will learn to love the text as part of their learning and actually to learn about the world. So that was really great advice, and it came from one of the art coaches, but it's something that's been sticking with me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shauna. And Heidi.
I've learned so much. So I would say my advice would be go slow to go far. Meaning, don't be afraid to invest time to teach the process so that teachers can own it and then teach it. And they will see the results in the student conversations. We've been in this for 3 years, and we can see that our literacy has grown. And now teachers will say, how can we do the same for our ASL instruction? We want to see our students excel and grow in both. So what do we need to do? So they're already having these discussions, and sometimes it takes up every minute of a PLC session. Every Wednesday we have PLC, and it's been a little bit tough to limit the time to it, but it is worth the discussion for them to talk and to collaborate with each other.
Wonderful. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you, each one of you. Our students are so fortunate to have you as education leaders in their schools, in their classrooms, in their districts. It's an honor to facilitate this conversation. Let me turn it over to Gina and Trisha, and we will conclude.
Wow, that was a pretty good ending. I'll just say one final thing. Was talking to Alfred Tatum earlier this week, and he's working on a new book he's probably going to call Shattering Literary Hierarchies. And I was thinking about how much each of you are examples of leading in a way that shatters literary hierarchies and literacy hierarchies. And may we have leaders like you in every school and every district, and finally solve this for all kids.